always happy to welcome you to ZANU-PF headquarters, the home of the permanent Zimbabwe revolution. You are our interface with the public, both domestic, regional, continental, and global. So it's not both, it's all of them. Without you, our message would not get through of the many good works which we are doing for the people of Zimbabwe as the ruling party, of the challenges which we face as the ruling party, but also the opportunities which we seize as a ruling party dedicated to bring prosperity to Zimbabwe as a homage to the generation of sacrifice from the 1960s and 70s who made the freedom of Zimbabwe and the rebirth of Zimbabwe be possible. That is our covenant with our departed comrades, and we are having this press conference a month after the Defense Forces Day, also after the Heroes Days. So it is quite in order that we have this press briefing with you. And we have had also several Politburo meetings, including the one last week, and on each occasion the President delivered keynote speeches, and those keynote speeches were a pointer as to what is the menu of the ruling party and its organs on the way forward for Zimbabwe. We are also having this press conference a month before our seminal annual event, which is the party conference. The party conference this time is going to be held in Mutare. This is Manicaland province, and it will also be paying homage to this heroic province of Zimbabwe. Yes, the revolution, the armed aspect of the revolution was implanted along the Zambezi Valley with an anchor in 1969, 71, 72, 73 in the northeast of Zimbabwe, which is Mashonaland Central Province. After the freedom of Mozambique in 1974, after the collapse of the deterrent exercise in 1975, the armed forces of the liberation movements united in Tanzania and were given an opportunity to start the war at a much higher level in Mozambique by President Samora Machel. So from that time onwards, there's an influx of Zimbabwean recruits initially in their hundreds, then in their thousands, in their tens of thousands, then maybe even in their hundreds of thousands. Most of them, 80% of them, passed through Manicaland to go to Mozambique, which became our new real base for the revolution. And again, 80%, if not more, passed through Manicaland back to fight in Zimbabwe. So it is befitting that this province, which became the bastion of the Chimurenga II, at the hour of victory between 75 and 79, should be honored with this party conference and its rightful place in the birth of modern Zimbabwe be recognized. So the ruling party, through its national chairperson, Comrade Opam Chinguri, has been going flat out to make sure that our conference in Manicaland is one of the most wonderful, one of the most faithful in terms of the decisions of economic importance to Zimbabwe. It will be pregnant with resolutions focused on increasing the prosperity of the people of Zimbabwe as our economy gathers pace at a pace which no one even feels jealous about anymore, which even detractors, they are now hiding behind pillows, blankets, under blankets, because we have made it in terms of delivering a modern economy to Zimbabwe. So the work schedule of the party conference will recognize the fact that for the first time in 75 years, major exports of Zimbabwe and the neighboring region, the neighboring hinterland, are now passing through Mutare to Beira, as opposed to going through Bight Bridge and Musina to Durban. This is a major turnaround of the economic performance of Zimbabwe. And if there's anybody who wants to see the testament of President Mnangagwa and the Second Republic at work, it is this singular development that Beira and Mutare have been restored as the natural gateway of Zimbabwean exports. Remember, Durban is 2,000 kilometers away from Zimbabwe, from Harare. Mutare is only 300 kilometers away from from Beira in Mozambique. It is not an issue which should confound anyone that the inflation factor which was emanating from using Durban as our port of export was huge. A container leaves New York or Shanghai, arrives in Durban, it has to be carted 2,000 kilometers away to Zimbabwe, maybe 6,000 kilometers to the DRC, because the ports of Beira was not working since 1965. It has not properly worked because of UDI. Afterwards, it was because of the sanctions against UDI by the United Nations, against Rhodesia. Afterwards, it was the declaration of war and the closure of the border by President Samora Machel. Afterwards, it was, even after independence, it was South Africa prosecuting a proxy war against Zimbabwe through Renamo in Mozambique. You know, remember, we had to deploy our army to defeat Renamo in Mozambique, the epic battles of Casabanana, Gorongosa, Mutarara, which were fought by the Zimbabwe Defense Forces to defeat the proxies of apartheid South Africa. Again, this was born mostly by Manicaland as the bordering province of Mozambique. So these geopolitical issues made Mutare, made Beira lose their status as the eastern gateway of Zimbabwean exports, of the hinterland exports. We are only 5 years into the Second Republic of President Mnangagwa. What a dramatic turnaround that Beira and Mutare now carry more of our exports to the world than Durban, which is far away. And the future of this region is even brighter when you consider that it faces the Indian Ocean and the major emerging global economic powers of the world. China is now number 2 globally, 1.3 billion people. India is now number 4 globally, 1.2 to 1.3 billion people. Indonesia has got 400 million people. I haven't talked of Pakistan, Bangladesh. I haven't even added the fund-rich Middle East and the countries like Iran, 80 million people. This is the interface which is now before Zimbabwe because of the economic performance which has been registered by the Second Republic. It means that we will have a faster access to global markets. And the inflation factor, which is associated with the artificial dependence of the South African ports, which was imposed on us by apartheid, is now a thing of the past. President Mnangagwa has restored the glory of Manicaland to Zimbabwe. It is now refinding its rightful place in the national economy, in the regional economy. And if you go today to Mutare, the place is awash with trucks all over, 30-ton trucks. You would be hard put to even drive at a fast pace along the streets of Mutare. The border is bursting on its seams. So this is why we are going to focus on the economic aspects of a new economy which ZANU-PF has given to the people of Zimbabwe under the guidance of President E.D. Mnangagwa. He has done miracles. And for clarity, I just want to highlight what are the major sinews of this economy. All of them have an imprimatur, they have a footprint of our current president. You know, the economy was in doldrums. 2008, we lost our currency completely. We became the bane of the world with hyperinflation, where the inflation rate was faster than the speed of light. How that could be possible from a physics point of view, it's an impossibility. But somebody was manipulating a calculator against our economy. In 2008, I give you one index. Our gold production slumped to 3 tons in 2008. We were kicked out of the London Bullion Market Association, which is the regulator of the gold trade. We used to, historically, to have always a seat on the London Bullion Market Association in London. Not surprising, because the history of this country is the history of gold. The great Zimbabwe civilization had a stable currency. That's why we could build consistently for 8 centuries. There was current stability. We didn't have a printing press. What was the money? Gold. So even under colonial rule, Zimbabwe had huge gold reserves. That's why Ian Smith could say to the world, I don't care about you because I've got to earn my currency. Because he knew that he was digging gold in Zimbabwe to support his minority regime. At independence, the Zimbabwe dollar was actually worth twice more than the US dollar. The Rhodesian dollar, I mean, at that time. So this is where we were in 2008. We were kicked out of an industry where we were one of the main players for decades and for centuries. What has since happened? In 2013, we made a resolution as the war veterans to legalize SME gold miners. In 2016, I was in cabinet and the former Minister of Finance, the Minister of Mines at that time, Dr. Mpofu, who is my Secretary General in this building, was the Minister of Mines. I was his chairman at the MMCZ, Mineral Marketing Corporation of Zimbabwe. I took the War Veterans Resolution into cabinet, the cabinet of the former President Mugabe, and they passed a resolution legalizing young people to dig gold. And the SME gold sector was born. What happens afterwards is a miracle in terms of the recovery of Zimbabwe's currency. By 2020, we're now at more than 20 tons of gold per annum. Today, we are at 51 tons of gold per annum. Why? Because the president has made sure that we paritize the price of gold between the global market and the internal market. So he killed the smuggling of gold, Comrade President Mnangagwa. Because the price of gold in Zimbabwe is almost the same as when we're on the gold market today. So there's no more smuggling. That's why we're now producing 51 tons. I can challenge anybody who is here to, after this or now, to go and get figures of the World Gold Council about Zimbabwe's gold production. These are international figures. They don't come out of this building. These are from an authoritative trader of gold. Zimbabwe is 51 tons of gold per annum. This is at a time when the price of gold is increasing. When this happened in 2008, the price of gold was $700 an ounce. Today, gold is hovering at $3,500, maybe $4,000 an ounce. You can see why our currency is appreciating. Now, there is I'm dwelling on this because there is something I want to exercise that the prosperity of Zimbabweans is based on chicanery, fraud, laundering, stealing, this. Don't be jealous about your own citizens if they make money out of the economic activity which is going on in the country. Don't be jealous about them. And if you have the template that only colonial people can be rich and not Zimbabwean people can be rich, then you are not for the new republic. Because the president Araguti, itai mari, vanavese itai mari kana mchigona, my youths, itai mari kana mchigona. I say this with a little bit of an angst, because some of the young people who have made money and are Scott Sakupwanya, they are branded as thieves, national thieves, when actually they are playing a very active role in the production of gold and making sure that young people who are digging gold get a price which is commensurate to their hard work. That's why they produce more. Maybe if I mention Scott Sakupwanya, you say maybe there's an axe to grind. I come from Chegutu. That's my district. Chegutu probably is the fastest growing GDP in the country today as a town. Between the road to Chinoi and the road to Harare, there is a company called Magaya Gold Mining there. This is former Giant Mine. 4 years ago, the young man came to me as a lawyer asking for my blessing to evict 5,000 to 10,000 SME gold miners at that giant mine. The reason why he came to me is because I'm the top politician in Mashonaland West. He says they are interloping, they are trespassing on our EPO, the EPO of his clients, which is the Delagio Group, the one at PLS mine in PLS mine in Chegutu. I said, if I allow you to evict them, I will lose the elections next time we go to the polls, because these are ZANU-PF supporters. Why don't you allow them to dig surface gold, which you don't need anyway, because it is at surface and it doesn't require a lot of capital. When they clean it off, they get into deeper shafts, they will require capital on a scale which they cannot provide themselves. You can then come in and fund them or buy them out. He went back to his clients, to his principals, that young lawyer, and they decided to adopt a method which I had suggested. 3 years later, I visited that place. I couldn't believe it. The amount of frenetic gold mining activity going on with mounds of gold everywhere, all of them annotated, all of them supported, with ball mills, everything going on. This company now produces half ton of gold every month. They've gone to take the model to Mazowe. They are taking it to Chikwekwe. They are now going to Gwanda. These are Zimbabweans, young Zimbabweans. I can mention the name, but probably I shouldn't, but I will. He's called Zwelilunga of Magaya Mining. This is the new breed of Zimbabwean gold miners who are making money. So when you see the ZIG strengthen, don't be surprised, because these people are digging gold. He is only one of many who are doing that. This is President Mnangagwa at work. This is ZANU-PF at work, charting a new economic path for Zimbabwe. I want to say this a priori because I'm going to entertain some questions. Then all of them send around black marking Zimbabwean entrepreneurs. Maybe there's one bad apple here and there. Maybe there's one who is showy here and there. But that is not a reason to throw away the baby with the bathwater or to have a blanket condemnation of a new class of African entrepreneurs who are riding on the resource restitution of ZANU-PF since we won the war. The land, what is above and what is below. This is where we are going. I'm going to read, there's a similar story going on with tobacco. Young people produce $1.5 billion worth of traded tobacco every year. This is not small money. Gold for these SMEs around 2 to 3 billion US dollars. This is money going to young Zimbabweans or to Zimbabwean families in Urungwe, in Marondera, who grow in Marondera. They produce the best Virginia leaf tobacco in the world. This industry did not exist before the land reform, before ZANU-PF. But it is now contributing as the second pillar of the Zimbabwean economy, the sinews which I talked about. I go to steel. The president has done the same thing. We now have the ultra modern steelworks on the African continent, and there's nothing like what we have in Europe, by the way. Zimbabwe is now galloped ahead of everybody in sub-Saharan Africa to challenge Egypt and Morocco in the steel sector. You will be happy to hear that at the guidance of President Idi Mnangagwa, we have reached out to what would have been our rivals in South Africa in the steel sector. We are now forging a synergistic relationship with the South African steel industry. We will focus on the raw steel production because our steel plants, blast furnaces, ultra modern, very efficient, and the iron ore is next to the blast furnace. The coking coal is next, is not far away. The ferrochrome is nearby. So the cost of production of steel in Zimbabwe is probably unbeatable if we can address the energy issues. And this company has built an energy plant at its blast furnace. So the South African side have accepted that we have an edge in raw steel production, but they want to maintain their global footprint in this downstream fabrication of steel. You know, South Africa is number 22 globally in exporting cars. They actually want to jump from number 22 to number 11. And they are seeing the Zimbabwe steel industry at Manize as the ticket to them producing world-class steel goods at a competitive global price so that they can carve out a niche which is better than Morocco or any of the other competitors to them. So the president is reaching out to his counterparts. The industrialist, steel industrial company in Zimbabwe is reaching out to the counterparts in South Africa to forge a new relationship. I try to remind everybody that there are two countries in Europe which fought about producing steel, France and Germany. 3 wars, 1870, 1914, 1939, wanting to align the coal and the iron at their border. Germany was invading France 3 times. When America became the power after the Second World War, they decided to cooperate and they formed what was the Franco-German Steel Union. That steel union is what is called the European Union today. But we don't have a history of fighting with South Africa. We are friends. We're fighting. We're actually allies fighting together for the liberation movements. So we have a better template to start for, a better pedestal to start for between Tshwane and Harare. If we then throw Mozambique into the ingredient with its ports, with its gas deposits in Cabo Delgado, with its Zambezi River hydroelectricity, probably the 3 of us can set the price of steel on the global market We can take even the Chinese to the cleaners. These are the things which occupy the mind of the president. And when he was out of the country, he has made a number of trips recently. Most of them have been focusing on how we can raise capital for the infrastructure which is needed to sustain the growth of the Zimbabwean economy at the pace which it has attained. 6% GDP growth per annum, even by IMF standards, is not something which you can frown upon. We are doing very well as an economy. But this is driven by big investors, billionaire investors in lithium, billionaire investors in cobalt and copper and the DRC. That's why the trucks pass through Zimbabwe going to Beira. Billionaire investors in steel in Zimbabwe. This is big money, but we don't have commensurate money on the infrastructure side so that we can take away all these heavy loads out of the roads to the railways. That requires big money. So when the president ends up in Japan, when the president ends up in China, these are railway powers of the world. We want them to come and invest in our railway technology, in our logistics networks, in our ports, so that this growth which I'm talking about cannot be throttled by an inadequate infrastructure. These are the things which occupy the mind of my president. These are the things which occupy ZANU-PF as the ruling party. I say this because there are persistent efforts from certain quarters, and some of them have cropped into the party, where we want to be distracted away from the goal at hand, which is to deliver on prosperity to Zimbabwe. People constantly throw cobwebs on the ruling party. They want to waylay the president, to be preoccupied with the trivialities and false accusations, to make us be engaged in a witch hunt amongst ourselves, so that they fulfill the fact that Africans cannot work together among themselves. They fulfill the fact that only a colonial economy can function, a revolutionary economy cannot deliver. We refuse that in ZANU-PF. Adamantly refuse that, because we have shown 22 years into sanctions that we can defy those who think they are masters of the world, that we can take advantage of a capital market globally which has become flat. Before, capital was Europe. Capital, I mean funds, were Europe. If Europe did not give you funds, you are fated to wallow in poverty. That's what Africa suffered from. And the only two beacons of prosperity on the African continent were Rhodesia and South Africa, because they had wide populations. And white attracted capital, black was denied capital. Now the world has changed. There are new prosperous economies. China, India. You can get capital in Riyadh. You can get capital in Sao Paulo, in Seoul, in Singapore, in Mumbai. All this is so. It has given an opportunity to Africa to ply the global capital market to grow their economy, and Zimbabwe is doing precisely that. It is because of the emergence of these new capital markets that we managed to defeat American sanctions. So lo and behold, today in America, in the American Congress, the same one which surpassed Zidera in 2002, it is revisiting Zidera to repeal it. That's not happening because America has become charitable. No. It's happening because they have seen that Zimbabwe can defy the odds and can prosper even when America is denying it access to the capital markets. Now they are saying if you can't beat them, maybe they join them. We welcome that. This is a good thing for Zimbabwe. The American market is huge. It's the largest in the world. We even want a reciprocal trade arrangement with America, as the president said. Why the reason? Because we believe that we can export steel to America and make money. No other African country can probably do that. This is what Zimbabwe has attained. So you can't argue with success, and nothing succeeds like success. These are the issues which our president and his party grapple with in the Politburo. How do we keep the economic momentum which we have gathered so that it can be sustained? The Politburo also gets preoccupied with issues of food security. Yes, we are aware that there's something amiss. Blue Ribbon closed in Bulawayo. This is a major miller. And there are our reports from our people on the ground in Matebele and South seem to say there may be maize shortages. We want to find out, is it a question of logistics? Is it a question of purchases from those provinces which are more endowed, which may have more maize, and it has not been taken to the consumers? So we have committees which are now engaging and supervising our Ministry of Agriculture, our Ministry of Finance, so that we can locate the nature of the problem, so that our people do not have to travel miles to get food. Our people are not forced to buy expensive refined meal by profiteering millers, because there's a shortage of basic maize meal. And if there's probably some national shortage, we're in a good neighborhood. Zambia has a huge surplus. South Africa has a huge surplus. You know, we can just open the market, especially for those in the south of the country. They can just cross the river. The Limpopo River is dry in summer now. There's no boundary between Zimbabwe and South Africa. So these are the issues which occupy our party. The welfare of the Zimbabwe people and issues of food security are important. The issues of building schools. We need more schools. We need to provide more water. And we need to provide more internet connectivity to schools. We need to make village business units to work. Because once you provide water and you provide solar, a village can become viable throughout 365 days of the year. They don't have to wait for one season to the next. These are the issues which are on the agenda of ZANU-PF. I'm dwelling on this because I want to emphasize that we will not accept to be foisted with agendas from outside as a ruling party. We will not accept to be foisted with agendas from outside, and in some instances there may even be a buy-in from amongst our own cadres, sometimes even in high places in our cadreship. But we are not going to be defeated from the course, and the course is to consistently work hard on all those things which bring economic benefit to Zimbabwe, and we toss aside all those things which may be cobwebs thrown into our eyes about how we should run this economy, sustain its momentum, and become a beacon of African prosperity on the African continent. We are creating a genuine African middle class in Zimbabwe. Our own genuine middle class, rooted in their day-to-day hard work on the resources which they were given by God, so that they can use those resources to build prosperity for their families all over Zimbabwe. We are not a country which has got only a professional middle class, like some of our neighbors who still have not carried out a land reform. I always highlight the fact that in South Africa, if a young executive is fired from his job, he loses his car, his child is thrown out of school, and his house is repossessed, because they don't own those properties, because they are on loans. In Zimbabwe, there are no loans. Everything which you see in Zimbabwe is owned, including cars on the road. They are all owned, they are bought cash. It shares, and in Zimbabwe, everybody has got money in US dollars in his pocket. Do you know, I lived in America. America does not give Americans US dollars. Its own citizens. They are not given US dollars by the American government. They work for them. So if you have got US dollars in your pockets in Zimbabwe, be proud, you have worked for it. It's not a gift from the American government. Definitely not a gift from the Zimbabwe government, because we don't print US dollars. It's America's money. But it has been earned by your hard work. People sell gold, sell tobacco, people are selling steel, they bring US dollars into the country and they flood into your pockets. So even if somebody wants to fight, put inflation on Zimbabwe, it's not possible anymore, because the money which we are using is the toughest currency in the world to operate with. It's America. We have domesticated the money of the superpower in Zimbabwe. Typing goods mari America muno Zimbabwe, US dollar. Yapinda pa foro, pa joke. Zimbabwe. This is kugona kwe ZANU-PF. That's what ZANU-PF does as a party. So I'm very happy that in America they are now in the House of Representatives. The bill has passed the committee stage to repeal Zidera. And one of the arguments was, because we didn't support them, now they are going along with the Chinese and the Indians. We say to them, the more the merrier, America, come on board. We have no color when it comes to the attraction of capital. Capital has no color. It can come from anywhere in the world. We will welcome it. More so if it is American capital, because it is coming from a hugely successful country to date. We didn't make America great, they made themselves great. So if they can come to Zimbabwe, tinazo zvidobi zveko apa veku Washington. Vopinda vojoin MQ. If they can beat Chinese investors, so be it. If they can beat Indian investors, so be it. If they can beat European investors, so be it. But they will be assured of one thing: a very disciplined, educated, and hard-working population of Zimbabweans. If you give $1 to Zimbabwe as an investor, anokushamisa risati radoka yatodzosa ya profit. I went to Mount Hamden 3 weeks ago. A Lebanese American investor, he is manufacturing gas tanks near Sidco there. He has got a factory as big as 3 times this hall in Mount Hamden. He says he brought Nigerians to teach Zimbabweans. He wanted them to stay for 6 weeks. In 6 days, Zimbabweans had mastered everything which they were being taught. He had no use for those Nigerians. This is what we are offering to the global investor. A very, very skillable labor force. Converting from a Zimbabwean from non-skilled to skilled requires, it's a no-brainer. That's why we built a steel plant at Manizi, those young people. The president is going to give them certificates. Most of the world are Zimbabweans, but they were supervised by the Chinese. Only steel came raw from China, and the technology inside came from China. But that whole superstructure there, yakangarangandwa nevana muZimbabwe, shash, adzitani kubata. So with a population like that, with a country so well endowed, with a party which is so well committed, we cannot go wrong. This is where we are going as a country.